Well, good morning. This is Dr. Brockenshire, and this is our Genetically Modified Organisms workshop. And this will give you some background information that you won't find anywhere else that's not edited for content. We'll see if Monsanto tracks us down and censors this particular talk. So what we're going to do today is go through what it really means to investigate a GMO, what it means to us as mammals that consume these things, and some ideas on how to protect ourselves from what the environment's going to give us. If you want more information, you can go to our website, innovativehealthdoctors.com. You can also visit our YouTube page at innovativehealthdoctors@gmail.com and find out more information there. We hope to bring to you more and more video about this. So understanding where we came from, that's a good place to start. And we have to realize that as humans, we've been genetically modifying organisms forever. But we've done it within the laws of nature. Up until recently, we didn't have the technology to play God with DNA. But as Mary Shelley said in her book Frankenstein, just because we can doesn't really mean we should. So what the bioengineers figured out is if we take a virus and we take some E. coli, we can insert new DNA into a cell and create an entirely new organism, which we call new to nature. So it wouldn't exist in nature otherwise. And by using viruses and bacteria to do that, they've created a stable, reproducible method for creating life. Now, while the Supreme Court figures all this out, they did grant Monsanto a patent on life. So Monsanto owns these seeds. And if you're a farmer and you get caught with these seeds and you didn't purchase them, they will sue you and typically put you out of business. Now, all of this is common knowledge. You can review it in the courts. The Freedom of Information Act has produced quite a bit of evidence to this effect. But considering that the same people that brought us cigarettes and asbestos are also bringing us GMO corn, we should probably think twice about eating it. And one of the reasons they did this was to improve crop yields and sell a whole song and dance, but it hasn't really turned out that way. In fact, the GMO crops are not all they're cracked up to be. So while you have to buy their seeds, plant their seeds, you can't save their seeds, it's kind of a farming nightmare. It hasn't turned out to increase crop yields. In fact, it's reduced crop yields. And in the infinite wisdom of nature, some of the pests that these GMO plants were designed to resist have adapted, and now these GMO pests really love these GMO plants. So, like in the movie Jurassic Park, nature found a way. One of the biggest concerns with these types of new-to-nature organisms is their safety. What is this going to do to the global chain of life on Earth? The producers of these seeds say that they are infertile and that they cannot reproduce. Well, that hasn't proven true in the real world. In fact, these seeds do mix with other seeds and form more GMO seeds. So we may have started a chain of events that we can't go back on. So what does this do to us as mammals who consume these foods? Well, one of the things we've noticed in the literature and in practice is when you consume GMO grains, particularly corn, they change the way your microbiota work. What I like to call zombie microbiota. So what happens is the DNA from these GMO seeds merges with the genetics of the bacteria in your gut, and it changes the way they think about things. So you used to have happy DNA in the bacteria that used to make you feel good based on the gut-brain connection. And what happens with the GMO seeds is their DNA mixes with your DNA in the gut, creating bacteria that can't produce the same type of calming chemistry. So you see symptoms such as paranoia, anxiety, restlessness. The other thing that happens in the gut is the yeasts that are naturally present get very aggressive. because it turns out one of the foods certain types of yeast really like is glyphosate, which is Roundup, which is the chemical that we're getting from some of these seeds. So as our food supply gets more and more tainted by these things, nature is evolving digestive chemistry in our digestive tract to handle it. Unfortunately, nobody's looked at what that's doing to our brain. So we're going to look at how these things affect our brain. If you want more information on this, I highly suggest the movie Bot. That's how it's spelt. You can watch some of the clips on YouTube. So when you're eating your strawberries or your carrots, if they're not organic, this is how they were set up. This is how they grow our foods today. It's a hazmat situation. And we know that pesticides cause a whole range of problems. This is not new, although mainstream medicine still thinks it has nothing to do with the disease. You could go through and look at lymphoma, infertility. Simple things as sciatica could be related to pesticides. So we lump pesticides and herbicides into what are called xenobiotics. And it sounds like an alien from a movie, but what it really is a chemical insult from the environment. So this is one of the reasons you don't microwave plastic, that you use BPA plastic for baby bottles, etc. There are xenobiotics everywhere. And our GMO foods produce xenobiotics. What nobody's done to date is look at how it affects the brain. So what's happening is all of these things that we look for every day in practice affect how our brain functions through our digestive tract. We'll do an entire lecture just on electromagnetic fields coming soon. But we know stress is an issue. And today we're going to talk about how the environmental insecticides and pesticides do this. So while we're having construction season on our brain, let's look at what happens if we throw off the delicate chemistry of our gut due to dysbiosis. You're going to see blood sugar problems, you're going to see joint pain, autoimmune diseases. How about food allergies? We see chronic pain all the time. If these are your symptoms, you've probably been exposed. So on and so forth. You don't want to know what the end game is here, but typically it's Alzheimer's, depression, anxiety, Parkinson's. What are the names of these cells that are causing these problems? Well, they're called microglia. And this is kind of the forefront of neurochemistry. I'd be happy to explain that microglia are also sensitive to the herb echinacea. So more on that as we do an immune lecture. But understand, if you're taking echinacea, you're helping your brain. Now, as you know, we're a very gut-oriented office. Your gut-associated lymphoid tissue can activate brain repair. So can your bronchial-associated lymphoid tissue. So this plays a big role with herbicides and pesticides because as you breathe these chemicals in and as you eat them, you activate how your brain repairs itself. If you eat too much sugar, the same thing happens. Now with glyphosate or Roundup, it's not just in the seeds. They spray it on foods to increase crop yields. So we've all had therapeutic doses of these chemicals. In fact, it's still in the water, it's still in the earth. So even if you have a home garden, there's a good chance you're getting Roundup in your food. One of the easiest ways to protect yourself from this is to increase glutathione in your body. Glutathione is made in your liver, and it is the strongest antioxidant we have. So it will protect your body against damage from these chemicals. The research on glutathione is pretty fantastic, and you can read it here. Now, giving people glutathione has been shown to reverse the process of cancer, but they give glutathione via IV. There are oral methods of glutathione today. Definitely check that out in the office. So we know dysbiosis from pesticides happens via changing the way the bacteria work, but it's not just in the gut. You've got your mouth, you've got the vaginal cavity. We know it's going to affect yeasts and parasites. And some parasites get stronger from pesticides and herbicides. So it changes the way we digest food. it changes the way we think, the way we feel, it increases leaky gut. If you can just picture these zombie bacteria walking around, crying brains, and eating the sides of your intestinal tract, you can understand why you feel a certain way sometimes. So some symptoms that you might see, typical associations. A good case example would be, it's early in the year, you wanted to get a quick 18 in, and they happened to be spraying the golf course, and you had a couple hot dogs that weren't organic on white bread, and you had a massive exposure to pesticides and herbicides. And it happened to be that pork for the hot dog was from non-organic pork, and those pigs were fed GMO corn. So all of these genes transfer through the species, affect the quality of the meat, the fat, etc., and can lead to symptoms like this. Symptoms will go up and down. What do we do about it? We've got the classic dysbiosis protocol. That is the easiest thing to do. We've got some traditional antibacterial herbs and antifungal herbs. We've got some intestinal fuel. We've got some what I call heal and seal technique here. We've got to remove all that gunk. We better repair the damage. We've got some excellent herbal antioxidants that will teach our body to make our own antioxidants. And we've got to throw in a probiotic just to be safe. The probiotics will kind of set the stage for what things are supposed to look like, if you will, the original blueprint. So one of the things to keep in mind is this isn't new, and this has been going on for over a generation. So how do we know it's happening to us? Let's not be afraid of it, let's just identify it. If you traditionally have these symptoms regularly, then your brain is being altered based on the bacterial dysfunction in your gut. As chiropractors, we see it because of poor spinal muscle stability. We find that adjustments just aren't working the way they used to. We also know that gluten has two different ways to affect us. Alcohol is a major way, so does head injury. So this is your connection to traumatic brain injury. The other thing to keep in mind is that most commercial wheat in North America is sprayed with glyphosate before harvest. So you're getting a therapeutic dose of glyphosate even if you just have a bun or that fresh bread at the Italian restaurant. The question here is, it may not be gluten that's the big issue. It may actually be the glyphosate or Roundup. Some of us are genetically predisposed to this, and I don't want you to panic on this slide, but understand that we will do an entire lecture just on this. But you can have these two genes tested, as well as this one here, and find out if you can, in fact, detoxify these chemicals. Wouldn't it be nice to know if you had the genes to do it? Well, if this is you, you probably have a defect in one or more of those genes. Over half of us do, but now we can find out pretty cheaply, in fact, how to see what our genes are doing. If this is you, you have a defect in some of the other genes, which are easily measured in a 23andMe test, which we can look at for you. But we're starting to see some trends here. There's a lot of people walking around with the same symptoms, and it's not just in your head. So, how do we handle it? Don't eat commercial foods from North America. GMO foods are banned everywhere else in the world except North America. So that's your Irish butter, your French cheese. Start looking at things like that. You can eat organic food from North America. By law, it can't have GMOs. Filter your water with a system that removes pharmaceuticals. Stop using Roundup. Take your shoes off. When you walk on somebody's grass that was just treated, don't track it through your house. Take your shoes off. Fix methylation. Those are your B6, 12s, and folates. Fix your gut a couple times a year with our dysbiosis protocol. Make sure you schedule your tea times away from course maintenance. And keep in mind that if we don't do it, there won't be a future generation to handle it. So share this information. Be smart, buy organic, support your local farmer, stop using Roundup, please, and take a stand. Voice your opinion for labeling these foods. Right now, labeling is voluntary. We need to know what's in our food and what we put in our bodies.